TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. While my talk today does not entail any of the above, it's really a journey that I consider extremely empowering, elevating, and tranquil. A lot of hard work has been put into it. However, TED for me is time, if utilized to the optimum, can bring about experiences all through your journey, only and only if you have the determination to want to achieve your goals. This TED Talk has been my What Next 2024, which I will dive into through the presentation. The purpose of this presentation is attributes that I have stumbled upon, that I have learned, I have encountered, and that I believe if you encounter will help you in your journey as well. I'm certain incorporating some of these attributes into your life will help you accomplish your what next moments more often than I did. Back in 2001, when I graduated from my bachelor's in commerce, I was told by my father, you pass, you stay, you fail, you bail. Hold on to that quote because I'm coming back to it. This is where I discovered my what next. Because my goals and my aspirations were very clear, I also knew I wasn't even remotely close to having accomplished any of them. I didn't know if I wanted to become a doctor or a lawyer or a psychologist. I needed to accomplish certain things other than that. I wanted a few things, one of which was financial freedom. I needed that money to live independently because I was not happy with the fact, considering that I was very dependent on my parents for my pocket money. I needed that decision-making power to feel the sense of accomplishment. I was not happy with the fact that my parents were constantly shadowing my decisions. I wanted to do that myself, even if that meant that I had to fall and stand back up. And lastly, this was a little thrill. It was necessary for me for people to know who Karishma Velani was back in the day. It gave me that little excitement, and this was part of my goals. I didn't know if I was going to accomplish this by designing an iPhone or probably flying an airplane. I just know that this is what I wanted. In the midst of this phase, I learned what it really takes to accomplish your goals. And that's when I stumbled upon SMART goals. Your goals need to be specific. When I say specific, I'm talking about, let's say you want to get better in economics, right? Your goal needs to be as specific as bumping up from a position 5 to a position number 2, versus saying I want to get better at economics. Your goals you need to have metrics to measure the success of your goals. Let's say you want to learn horse riding. You've got to start by learning how to mount a horse, walk a horse, trot, and then canter. You can't jump from mounting to cantering. Your goals need to be attainable. They need to be realistic. You cannot wake up and say, I want to be a millionaire tomorrow, and it's not going to happen. Your goals need to be relevant. Your actions need to be relevant to your goals, which means that if you want to build a muscle, running miles and miles on a treadmill is not going to help. You're going to have to lift the weights. And of course, they need to be time-bound. Goals need to have milestones and a deadline. You must say, I want to accomplish X, Y, Z only by the end of December 2024. You don't leave them open-ended. On a very strong side note, it does take a lot to accomplish these goals. A lot of hard work has been put into it and has to be put into it, right? This is one thing that I very strongly believe in, and I tell my children this very often. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Going back to what my father said, you pass, you stay, you fail, you bail. What he really meant is that if you score the marks, you pursue your future education, or it's fine. We'll find you a rich, handsome man, and you're good on your own. Get married. A couple years earlier, that's what my sister decided, right? And in her defense, I don't think that's a decision really that was hers. It was a decision made by my parents, just embedded onto her and made it sound like her decision. I took that quote and I went to my uncle, who used to be my mentor back in the day. He's someone I reached out to for all academic advice. He very categorically told me this in very simple words. He said, Karishma, you have two choices. One of which is you build a career based on your passion, your skill, thereby accomplish those defined goals, or you could choose to be a homemaker. There's nothing wrong or right with either or. Neither of them are looked down upon. It's a choice you have to make. And that became my what next. That became my decision of dollars over duty. Now that I knew what I wanted to do, I had to plan the how, when, and where. After a lot of research, I believed I could acquire admission in a university in Australia. The term international excited me a whole lot, right? And I decided to pursue my international business. I knew what I signed up for, and I knew it would come with a lot of challenges, but I was ready. Now that I decided I wanted to pursue, I came back to my uncle and my father to consult them because they were two sides of the same coin, two different perspectives. And the good part of it is because they both thought so differently, there was a lot for me to adapt. There was a lot for me to learn and pick the best of the both. One of them being extremely cautious because he said that you don't have to study abroad to get that knowledge. You could acquire the same here, while the other one was a risk taker. He said you won't know till you don't go. While my father believed in the ability to learn and educate yourself within the country, my uncle, on the other hand, believed that experiences cannot match any form of academic excellence. My father is extremely gut and instinct driven, something that he believed in, he would just take that leap. While my uncle, on the other hand, is extremely analytical in nature. There had to be a reasonable logic and a sensible approach to any decision he made. My father, whose gut and instinct is so strong, and that's what made me make it overseas, my uncle looked at the growing number of students that studied abroad and the value that they brought to the table. It's one thing to say I want to study overseas, and it's another to actually make that happen, right? Now that I had the permission from my parents, I had to go through the process of application, visa, passport applications, visa applications, all the internal exams like an IELTS and various other exams. Lots of, obviously, the fact that I needed to avail a bank loan and to ensure that I do get that offer letter at the end of it all. I didn't know how I was going to accomplish all of this, but I knew that I had to begin somewhere and get started. All I knew was I would do anything in my power to get on that aircraft and make it to Australia. Despite all the challenges that I faced, my father didn't approve of the decision, considering that he did not approve of the decision. He still supported me. It's his, daughter, you want to give her the best. You still want to provide her with the choices that she wants to make. I made that firm belief that I would sit on that aircraft and migrate to the United States. Most of my friends told me, forget about it. Considering how hard it is to actually, how cumbersome and complicated that whole process is of acquiring a passport, of acquiring a visa, of acquiring a loan, considering that my father may not be in the best position to avail one, I still gave it a shot. But I knew I wouldn't know till I didn't try. And at the end of it, at least I wouldn't regret not having tried. Usually, I try not to have a backup plan, because if you do have one, you will derail. You will end up resorting to that backup plan. So I prefer not to have one, and I chose not to have one here. I just knew that I had to make it to Australia. If it is not for that, it's nothing else. On a side note, my father often called me a poor man's rich daughter. He said that very often because finance was never a blocker for me. If there was something I wanted, I would go pillar to post to ensure I got it. My friends in tandem were very supportive, right? They're the ones during this entire journey that have been so optimistic. It is very important, if you want to be positive, you pay attention to the friends you talk with most of the times. This one for me is very big. I wouldn't be able to make it without their belief, right? And I believe in this very strongly. Your guidance and your friends' support is what is required. If you hang out with 5 confident people, you will be the sixth. If you hang out with 5 religious people, you will be the sixth. If you hang out with 5 millionaires, you will be the sixth. And I'm sorry if you hang out with 5 idiots, you will be the sixth. Right? So choose your 5 wisely. There are some that will support you regardless of your choices you make, while there are some that will demoralize you despite of how affirmed your decisions are. After all these many very first experiences, my belief in my what next only got stronger and stronger. Come 2002, I made it to Australia. With a bank full of all the experiences, despite all the challenges that I faced, I did accomplish the feeling of financial independence. I did accomplish the feeling of decision-making power. And just so you know, in my IELTS exams in India, I failed in English. Despite that, I was amongst the first few, or a very few, to get a job at a gas station within the first 15 days of my term, predominantly because of my communication skills. Along with all these aspirations and a big fat loan that I had taken, I pursued my education. No sooner I got there, I began to look for means to help me save the money and pay back my loan. That became my what next. After 2 years of rigorous study, various jobs, relationships, and a bankload of experiences, it was time for me to decide my what next again. What does that mean? I had the option to acquire a residency in Australia, vis-a-vis coming back to India. This, unfortunately, was the saddest decision I ever had to make because I had to come back to India. And that was because my sister decided to migrate to the United States. And considering we were only 2 siblings, I didn't have a choice. I was the younger one, I had to make it back home. But you know what? It is what it is. That's when we learn how to deal with stress. If you've got to do it, you've got to do it. Move on. I think in today's day and age, stress is amplified a little way too much, right? I know, and I like this formula a whole lot, because if you have a problem and you know how to solve it, there is no point stressing over it. If you have a problem and you don't know how to solve it, what is the point of stressing over it? Some of these attributes largely contribute to one's success. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to cover most of them, but feel free to read through, and there's a beautiful quote from Warren Buffett. A little bit about success. It's more than just luck. You have to put in the work. While some people may wish for it to happen, some of them may want it to happen, a few of them will make it happen. It really takes a lot of work to get to the end of it. There's one of my bosses in my recent terms told me, an idea is only an idea until it is executed. Think about it. What it really means is that you may have the best idea in the world, but if you're not going to put in the work, that idea is going to keep sitting there and it's going to do nothing, right? Came back to India. I got my first white-collar job as a key account manager in the gem and jewelry industry. I was obviously very nervous, considering I had absolutely no experience in this industry. I didn't know how to deal with tangible goods, but it was an opportunity that knocked on my door. I'd rather grab it and figure it out one day after the other. Moving on, somewhere in the recent past, I encountered another situation that taught me a very important attribute, which is called self-worth. The corporate world today can be bitter, can be nasty at times. In the recent past, in the past 4 years, I would say, we hired a subordinate, a director at a subordinate who was an equal, a director at my level, and we were not in sync. We just could not work in tandem. This corporate world, just so you know, is your real world. There is cutthroat competition, there is no dom mom, there is no biological mom to hold on to you. It's a dog-eat-dog world. People will do anything to gain success, even if that means harming another person. It's ruthlessly competitive, and you've got to put in your You've got to fight your battles, right? Wisely. Came a time when things didn't go very well between him and without much detailing, I want to let you know I decided to resign, right? I resigned with immediate effect, knowing that I would be unemployed, knowing that I knew I needed to keep my brain stimulated. I stood put. I made sure that I would not change my mind. Self-respect is non-negotiable. There is no reason one should compromise on their self-respect, right? You must know your self-worth. 3 months down the line, I was called back by my boss in the same company under my terms. And that's when I learned the importance of an empathetic team, the importance of having a good team around you. You are the future. Your what next is driven by the opportunity that knocks on your door. You either grab it or slam the door back at it. This world, there is immense opportunity, but there is also fierce competition. Your power is unmatched. The change that you can bring about is not even remotely known today. Keep in mind a few of these attributes that you learned today, and you will know what you can do. This is a little something that's been on my office back wall, and I like it very much. I thought I'd like to share it with you. Laziness kills ambition, anger kills wisdom, so on and so forth. Let's go to the point. Peace kills jealousy, dreams kills fears, wisdom kills anger, ambition kills laziness. Please read through this. And lastly, this is me constantly seeking my what next moments. Good luck to each one of you in your future endeavors, and thank you once again for allowing me accomplish my what next moment this 2024. Thank you.